Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ahmed, and now for stepforward.com we will see that how data filled in HTML forms can be handled in PHP. So what we will cover in this video is that first of all we will give you a very brief overview of HTML form controls and their values, how they are sent, what values are sent. In fact, we are not discussing HTML forms. I am not teaching you that. I'm just teaching you what values will be expected in PHP side. So then we'll have a look at the form element and its attributes that are very important from our perspective. Then we have already discussed the globals array and the gets array. Now we are going to study some more super globals, starting with again revisiting get and its kind of a sister array, the post array. Then we will look at the request array and the underscore server array. And then at the end we will see that how we can give default values to HTML form controls. So this is our agenda for this video. Now let's go to our code, and just to spare some time I have already filled some this page. So this is the output I can see. Just have a quick look. We have an h2 tag followed by a field set and a legend. The legend is shown over here, and this is the field set, the border all around, open over here and closed or way down. Then we have the form tag. We will discuss the attributes later. The form tag is closed over here. And then we have a label, a text box, another label, radio button, text, radio button, text, another label, and then the select element, the drop down list, another label, and finally the checkbox. And of course we also have a submit button. So this is the markup I can see. I haven't given any ID to any control. That is because IDs are useful in HTML, CSS and JavaScript. In short, IDs for controls are helpful at the client side end, but for the server side end we need the name attribute. So I have named these controls. The text name is name equal to text underscore name. For the radio buttons, the name are gender, red underscore gender, red underscore gender. Both of these radio buttons have to be the same so that they can be grouped. Otherwise they will be independent controls. And each control, the first radio button has a value of male and the second has a value of female. Then for the drop down list, this is the name of our control, and these are 3 entries, sample entries, and their respective values. And then finally we have a checkbox, and this is the name of the checkbox, and a submit button. Okay, so this is our default form. Now we want the user to fill this form and submit it, and we would like to handle this data at the PHP side end, the server end. So first of all we need to understand a few things, that the form tag has two very important attributes that we need. First of all is the action attribute. In the action attribute we will give the name of that page on which this data will be sent, or in other words, which page will take action on this data. It can be any other page, it can be this same page. For simplicity reasons I am going to mention it another page, otherwise the same page is also sufficient. So form underscore result is the page we want our data to go to. So we first need to create that form underscore result dot php. Open it up in text editor. We have it over here. Okay, the second attribute, although if I even skip that attribute, we have a default value. The second is a method. If the value is skipped, or the attribute is totally skipped, the default value is get. So just for clarity I'm mentioning it as get. And go back over here, refresh it. One more thing, that There are three types of buttons. So the submit button is the one responsible for sending the data or taking this action, following this action using this method. The submit button, otherwise if I use just a normal button, type equal to button, this won't send any data. The reset button will only reset the values mentioned in this form tags. So basically submit button is the one we need. This data will be sent to the other page. Let's go back, just fill this data, mail, good, and if I click submit now, of course there's nothing mentioned in the next page, but you can see that from the previous video I taught you how to send data in the URL. First understand how data is being sent. Question mark starts the beginning of the data. So this is the first control name and its respective value, separated by an ampersand sign, then the second control and its value, then another control separated by the country name and the code, and finally the subscribe equal to on. So you see subscribe has a value of on. Let me go back, unsubscribe, send now. The subscribe checkbox is not at all present now. Okay, so I hope you understood this. So I taught you that in the previous video that data sent can be extracted using the get variable, get array. So this is the next page. Okay, so okay, this is the next page, and again we can always use a pre-tag. And we have this data. If I go back, tick mark on this, that's giving me this data. So this data is now sent using this URL. Data has been embedded in the URL. Let's go back and change the method. The other option is the post option. In post option, data is not sent using the get method. In fact, data is sent using the HTTP post protocol message. So now refresh this page. Now send it. You see there's nothing present in the URL, and this array is also blank. This is where the other other array, that is the post array, comes into place. This is the post array, and this is the data present in the post array. So first of all, let's figure it out how we can find out that only at this page level that from where the data is coming from. Is it in the get or is it in the post? There are a few options we can try. For instance, we can try this thing that if post is not present, or we can say if post, else if refresh it. See, the data is present in post. So I'm checking that if it is present, print it. If this is present, then print it. And also we can give that else no data was sent. Just see, no data was sent. Go back, now go through this and yes, post data was sent, or go back, refresh, get data was sent. Another way is to use the isSet function and keep on doing this for this one also, so it will work just as this is working. So this is one way of doing things. Now we can, of course, we can easily extract the data. I don't have to demonstrate it again. Just a quick understanding that data can be extracted like this. For instance, get, we have data in get. We can get the name, we can get the gender, we can get the country, we can get subscribed. But what if the user didn't even subscribe? For instance, let's go back, unsubscribe, send. And now if I try to get the subscribe value, it's giving me an error because that value isn't present. Go back, subscribe, now it will be present. So yes, it is on. So it is not on or off, it is present. Basically it is present or not present. So what we can do is we can simply use this line. If is set, if this value does exist, send it, it exists and we have a value of on. It doesn't exist and we have no value. Okay, I hope this was clear to you. Now let's go to the next part. Now in cases that we have get, we have the post, both of these are working in our case, and in some cases there's a limitation of 4 kilobyte of data that can be sent using the get, using URL, and there is as such no limitation on the post type of data. Some type of sensitive data should not be sent using the URL because URL it would be visible, like for instance the password should not be sent using this, and post should be preferred. Of course that again is not so much safe. Now what we can do here again is that skipping all this thing, if you can recall in the beginning I used, in the early videos I used a function get defined vars, variables, when I was telling you that PHP is a variant type, and when I introduced the var dump I also introduced this, and I told you that this variable, this function, sorry, it will return all the variables that are declared in this script, all the variables. So now let's do it. Save it, go back, refresh, and some error occurred. Oh yes, I don't have to use another colon. Refresh, see a big list. Now what it is telling me, again the globals, you can recall the post, this is part of the globals one. These are globally available, so we can skip all this part. No data present in the post. Yes, there is data present in the get array. Cookies are absent. Files, no data exists in the file. So this is a quick overview of where do we have data. Another important thing is that there is an other array, and that array is the request array. Go back, refresh, it has some data, and I send the data using this part. Let's go back, change it to post, refresh it, just to demonstrate that the new data is being sent. Send. Again we have data, and this is not in URL. So again, if you can recall the first video, the very first video, I explained to you that whenever the data is sent from the browser to the server, it is always a request, and whenever this request is answered, it is also always in the form of a response by the server. So request is basically the data sent by the server. Request can be get or post, it doesn't matter. Request will always have the contents of get, post and cookies. Request array will always have the contents of get, post and cookies array. Cookies we haven't discussed right now, but get and post we have discussed. So this will always be available. So, but there is a catch. For instance, some data, for instance, we are sending data using post, but at the same time I'm also doing something else. For instance, I am also sending the time. Hours basically. Okay, so let's go back and refresh this page. Now if I press the send button, you see the data was sent using post, but at the same time an additional data was sent using this date variable over here. So data is being sent from get and post, both of them, and in what this request will do is it will merge both the data. Now let's try a tricky part. What if I name it from not date but to the same name that is already present in this data? So now let's go back, refresh, send now. You see this data has been overwritten by this data. Both of them were received. We can double check that by first printing the get array. You see the data is there, and the post array. But when these were merged, so of course this is not possible to have two indexes of the same name. Finally, at the end, I need to introduce to you another server array, another superglobal variable. Now none of this data has been filled by us. This is always present, and it has a lot of information about the client, the server, and the communication that is going on between them. For instance, HTTP host, this is the name of a host site. User agent is the browser used by the user. Then the HTTP accept parameter, that this request will accept any text, HTML document, or this type of document. The language that will be used, connection, HTTP refer, who refer to this page. You see we are in this form_result.php page, and who sent it over here? This page. This is responsible for it. So we have all this, the content 51 length, which server we were using. This is the version of the server software, again server name, server address, IP address, on which port the server is working on which port the browser is working on which IP the client is working on, or the browser. But because my laptop is the server, is also the client, so both IPs are same. Then the root document, the actual physical path, so on and so forth, so many other details. What data, URL request, what was the name of that PHP file. So a lot of data has been sent. So in this, all of this, you can see that there is a specific index, that is request method. Which method was used to send data to this page? So we can use this. We can simply say that, let's copy it over here. I'm not writing the whole code. I will just say that if You see, you get the idea. Hopefully do some. So we know now that which method was used to send the data, get or post. So this is how we can handle data, form data at the server end. Now the last thing was that how we can give default values. For instance, I have an error in the data sent and I want to be sent back. Right now what I have taught you, this doesn't cover it. So what we can do is that we can simply say that this will be posted back to the same page, okay. Go back, refresh. When I send it, it's sending it back to itself, okay. So let's say at the top, data received. Now let's okay. Now this is the first visit, so no data was sent. Fill it up quickly and it's telling me yes, data was received. Now the data was received, I need to refill this data. So that is simple. Just cut it from here, go over here. If post data existed, so just what to do? Just print the value of the data you received in the post. And we got Ahmed. You see, that's simple. And for radio buttons, all you have to do is you have to use if on both sides. For instance, let me do it again. And let's finish this text wrap so that, where is this text wrap? Okay, here we go. Okay, I copy the text, paste it over here, and if it existed and the posted value of the radio control was equal to male, then do what? Don't have to print the value, just have to you see. Now this is by default selected. If I change it to female on the next reload, nothing is happening. Why? Because I haven't added the same code to the next part. Just I have to copy this, paste it over here, and just my minor change, save. Now if I refresh, you see the female is also selected. For country, for each of this line we need the same code with the comparison of the value also. And if the value is the same, instead of checked, you need to mention echo selected, and same is the case with subscribe. So this is how data can be handled in PHP.